All right. We'll just edit the little bits. We don't edit, we just.
It's fine, it's fine.
Uncut.
Yeah. What is that, unplugged?
My cousins from Mexico used to say, "Unplugged." Unplugged. Unplugged.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
I have the arrow in my chin.
It's like pointing at my chin. That's a good, all right, there you go, I didn't even know that's.
Okay,
Hi.
we're back. We're gonna talk about desal otra vez,
Otra vez.
but it's a kind of a different way, so, yeah.
So Elida Castillo, Wichita, Texas.
Isabel Reza for the greater good.
And I'm Blanca.
With everybody.
With everybody. I'm nobody.
You are somebody.
Yes.
The people who were sitting on the dais on Tuesday during the council meeting.
Oh my God,
Wow.
that's so awful.
How rude. How ugly and how rude.
So they were getting up and down. I actually took a video of it. I guess you can share it at the bottom because we were still trying to figure out how we should caption what was happening, but basically like they were just getting up and down over and over again while people were getting up there talking about their opposition to the continued funding of the desal projects. And obviously we know that our representatives, our council members, you know, are all in for desal. And so they just couldn't be bothered with listening to our public comments. And so this is like, that's also something that really makes me mad, which I know it doesn't kind of go with what we were going to be talking about, but
We're here, so.
so yeah, that like public comments is really, it's one of those super frustrating things because they use it as a way to ignore us or to say, well, people had their say, doesn't mean that they're actually going to be listened to. And so I feel like on the one hand, it's frustrating to go because we know that they're not going to change their position. But by the same token, you know, they have these like rules of decorum, but like so disrespectful.
But they have
Yeah.
no decorum.
Mhm.
They have no respect. And I'm gonna go a little further and say like, it's certain people. It's very clear that it's anyone who wants to discuss anything about water or desalination or the bays and estuaries. And it is like to discourage. It's obvious that they do it to discourage, and then like. You wonder, like, should I just give up? But then you realize, like, I'm not coming in here asking for, you know, wants. These are like needs.
Mhm.
This is water, this is. Our bays and estuaries are. They sustain a lot of business, a lot of people in our community, so it's not something that we can easily just. Abandon. It's existential, it's water. We were just convinced for weeks and weeks that we're in a drought crisis, that we're gonna dry up, that this, that, and so it's like. I guess what I'm getting at is why are the most important things in our lives and in our quality of life and in our health and in our community, why are those things taboo and off limits? Why? And just to add, the people that they did have to sit down and listen to were people who were frustrated with the water department, were frustrated with the city's handling of projects and of their treatment and how they were being treated and how they were losing their jobs and how they were being basically cheated, gaslighted by the city. And so you hear that public comment and you can't help but wonder why, when people come in here to try to prevent things like this from happening, do you all not listen? Is it because you don't believe these people? Is it because you don't care? Or is it because it's already a done deal and there is no preventing it? Which is it? Because why else would you sit there and ignore your constituents like that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's really curious, right? Because as we spoke about last week, Michael Hunter had talked about,
Yeah.
why are we having these budget meetings, so close to the election? Like, this is gonna jeopardize our position, and we support you, Peter Zanoni, city manager. And, this can be used against us in our campaign, but yet the way they treat citizens who are
Yeah.
taking time out of their busy days to attend a council meeting during the middle of the day and express their concerns, because
Yeah.
this is the only platform that they have, to
Yeah.
directly speak to the council members and the mayor, like, then they're like treated that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
literally, we had Mike Pusley, John Martinez, Peter Zanoni, Paulette Guajardo,
Barrera,
yeah, I was calling Roy Barrera,
Roland.
Roland Barrera, it's like that doesn't sound.
Rolling.
But all of them got up while members were getting up to voice their concerns around desal. And it's, I mean, again, it's so disrespectful, but also really emblematic of the fact that, they have no regard, no respect for people who have the well-being
Yeah.
of the community
Yeah.
centered. I mean, the reality is that we're all worried about water and our natural resources and our quality of life, but who are they willing to listen to, or who are they willing to not treat with contempt? And it's so frustrating because people always say, well, if you care, then you need to take action, right? And you have to do something.
Have
And
you
so,
reached out? Have you said this? Have you done that? Have you discussed this? Have you?
right, and we did collect signatures from more than 4,000 registered voters a couple of years ago to show that, like, there are people who want to have a say, who want to have a conversation, and we're still not having an honest conversation with them. And so I know that somebody had mentioned that them wanting us to talk about the price of desal. And so I wanted to bring that up today too, so that you guys could be aware of, how much it's actually going to cost. And so these numbers that are available to us are ones that were produced by the city to the Water Development Board back in 2018. So these costs are the older costs. We don't have updated costs. This is what we have, like an official document from the city. And the facility, the building of a 30 MGD facility. So this is where it's also different too, because now they're talking about 40 MGDs, and MGDs are million gallons per day. So to produce 30 or 40 million gallons per day, these numbers are for a facility, that will be producing 40 million gallons of water per day. So the facility cost is going to be $387 million. The cost of actually planning the project is another $562.8 million, which actually comes out to about almost $950 million in 2018
So,
numbers.
Pre-pandemic, pre-inflation, all those numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty bad planning. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to just kind of think about the record.
Yeah, I mean,
Harbor Bridge project.
yeah, and that's because that cost was originally about 900 something million, now it's estimated over $1 billion.
Right.
And that's because it hasn't been completed, and
Yeah. And then the total annual cost is gonna be about $86 million. So it's a lot of money,
And
but
that's one plan.
that's one plant, yeah.
One, remember there's permits for 4 and there's permits for 4.
and they took out a loan for 220 million.
Right, that loan has been taken out. It's already being dipped into.
Mhm.
Haven't they already spent some of that?
They said for,
Procurement, they like the word procurement and due diligence. Those are their 2 favorite
Yeah.
I
words.
see.
That's where they spend a lot of millions on due diligence
And-
and procurement.
they don't have the attention span to sit through 12 minutes of public comment from concerned citizens. How are they like able to sit through hours of conversations with engineers and all that with all this technical data? Like, in serio, like they're actually paying attention?
They're just gonna come in and say, sign on the dotted line,
Yeah,
and they will. That's what's gonna happen.
I mean, that's what happened with the cryptocurrency plant, like they just got the paperwork Friday evening. Then Tuesday morning, when they read about it, they didn't know anything about it, and yet they still voted in favor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
of
And on, back on cost, it, you know, that, like she said, that, like Isabel said, that's one plant. And so that's a 30 MGD in the Inner Harbor, they're looking at a 40 MGD. In the port is looking at a 40 MGD in the La Quinta ship channel, the city's looking at a 40 MGD in the ship channel. And the port is looking for the second plant in Harbor Island for 50 MGD. So that kind of goes back to how massive this is. And there have been rumors that, oh, you know, the council is trying to discredit, oh, people think there's gonna be 4 plants, people think we're gonna. Well, we don't just think that, we didn't just wake up and decide that that's what we were gonna say. They have submitted permits for that, and they've made comment that whatever water they think we need, it's more and more and more. They
Also-
made it clear they're going for all of that.
Let me go ahead and I'm gonna
Yeah.
play that video and this is Port Commissioner Engel, and he
Yeah.
was appointed by the city, right?
Right.
So let's pay attention. It's only 16 seconds that I'm gonna play.
Yes, but this is very important for you to get an idea of how massive this is gonna be.
Okay, and so we're gonna do this like
Kind of,
also like regular people style.
Yes.
So here we go. Excuse my fingers. Here we have it. Oh,
You need in water,
hold on.
you need to think
Ah.
bigger because,
Here we go.
so as I've told you in the past personally, whatever you think you need in water, you need to think bigger
Oopsie.
because it's gonna happen. There's industry coming here and the industry that's here is planning on growing. And I don't think there's anything that we're doing at the port level that these,
Chihuahua. Is that okay? Was that?
we good, I just didn't want your personal message on. But you could see it, you could see it. So yeah, whatever you think you need, think more and more and more. There's industry coming. And the ones who are already here need more. So they're not just looking at one plant. And the other thing on cost that I'd like to add, because Isabel has a lot of good information on that, is just that the port commissioners in these briefings have made it clear to the mayor and to the council that the city is gonna get pulled into their desalination process. The port will get the permit depending on what the TCEQ grants, depending on how the permit is stipulated. They are going to involve the city, and there is one reason that they would involve the city, and it's not because the water is for us. The one reason that they would involve the city would be to pass that cost on to us. And that has been conversation now on more than 2 occasions where port commissioners have come and explained to the city, I don't know how much more clear we need to be, it's going to be the city. So you can pretty much bet on the fact that we are somehow gonna be stuck with the bill for the ports plants. And those are not for us, none of them are for us.
None of them.
So we're
So-
talking massive.
Almost $1 billion in 2018. Now, what, 4 years, gonna be 5 years later? It's gonna be about double that, like 2 billion
Probably.
for one plant.
Yeah.
And that is going to get attached to property taxes, to water bills, to electricity bills, because not only is this going to impact that price that we pay from that, but electricity, desalination plants consume a lot of electricity. And I still remember the Texas grid every single day. And I think we get those reminders too, because I mean, it's still hot out there. And like, you know, when we're told, oh, be careful, like, don't use the grid on these days because, you know, so when these things come online.
We're gonna be shut off, we'll be in a blackout and they'll be running. Or we'll be paying for it at least. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the thing is too, like, we live in. Like, gracias a Dios, like, we haven't been hit in a, like, you know, since Harvey happened, but we've had like small scares. What's gonna happen to these facilities, you know, during the next hurricane?
Yeah. And the Inner Harbor one in the next explosion, because they wanna put it right there where we've had explosions. That's where their water source is, so. Yeah, there was one thing I read on that, on the energy that also, made me realize that we do have like salinity issues with the bay. I'm trying to find it. Okay, it says energy is the largest operational cost of a desalination facility. And energy use is directly proportional to salinity of the source water.
So as the bay water gets more salty, because they are gonna dump the brine. They're gonna truck some of the sludge out. And then they're gonna dump the brine back into the bay, so the bay is actually gonna get saltier,
Yeah.
right? So
And remember, like 4 plants doing this in all the areas and one already permitted to do it.
Yeah, and they're saying, well, we're only putting back what was already there. But it's like, you're putting back what was already there in a concentrated form.
That's. so-
It's
yeah.
diluted right now because of the amount of water, but you're gonna take that back, like,
Yeah.
and throw that back
So,
in the
Just,
concentrated form.
they implied that putting the salt back in that was already in there wouldn't matter because it was already in there, but it was in there diluted in water.
well, so here's something else that one of our For the Greater Good members was talking about among the group, but they were saying that there's actually a rule about how much water has to be released. Fresh water has to be
Yeah.
released into the bay because of the salinity. And so have they even factored in the fact that you're gonna have to release more water from, I don't know if it's Choke Canyon or if it's from Mathis, but, or I don't know.
Yeah, you have to release more because the estuaries, you have to maintain that
Right.
balance, and right now, we're already seeing, that increased salinity with the dredging that's happening.
Yeah.
And there is this
So-
little misconception too, I think from a lot of people at the lake, that a desalination plant would free up their water and would free up their lake and would stop that. First of all, right now, the city has come out and said that they're not doing the environmental releases. What y'all are seeing leave your lake and leave your property is feeding industry. They will put it any way they want, it's feeding industry. I don't even trust that they do those environmental releases, I'm just gonna say it. I know they're ordered and they're mandated, but knowing our city, and they've come out and said, and they've gone out and found all kinds of loopholes too in that agreement to get out of having to do them. And when we're in a drought, that's the first thing they stop doing, is doing that. So that misconception again, that the lake is being drained, I've even heard save people, not shrimp. You need to change that to save people shrimp and not Exxon, that's what you need to change that to. That's not, and just to add to that point, I did have a chance to watch a few of the administrative hearings between the port and the people who don't want it in Harbor Island in Port Aransas. And that was literally, the port lawyer had that as a sales pitch to the state, that desal is healthy, it's gonna help the bays because it's actually gonna free up fresh water to keep releasing. I mean, it was pretty convoluted, but that's what I took, that was his sales pitch. That it is actually gonna be healthy for the bay. So his idea was that we're still gonna have more fresh water. So if you're thinking that desal is gonna stop, that water has been committed, you're not getting it back. And that's why we're so just determined to get the word out and to stop this, because once that water is promised, we're second, third class citizens. We're at the bottom. The deals that are made, the agreements that are made, they don't look out for us. They are not looking out for us. In fact, the agreements are made under the assumption that we can be squeezed and pushed and bullied and restricted into buying this plant for industry. I have a little video clip, but I don't know, should I just show it on the phone? It's short,
Sure.
but it's just, and I know this is off script too, but
It's okay, it's okay.
but it's one of the things that's really been bothering me, because it's one of these things where it's like, they just want your mind. They just want your mind, and basically what it is, it's a councilman who is a proponent of desal, and who apparently has been for a long time, which again, he brings up every time I've tried to push desal, and it's kind of like, I thought we were getting desal because we were in a drought crisis. So,
Right.
But it just illustrates a little bit how they want to just pressure us into, going and basically agreeing to pay for this, like how they wanna just scare us into paying for desalination.
Can we press play and take it over
Yeah,
there?
yes, it's short
Tell me when to stop.
and I'll be quiet so he can be heard, yes.
So Petropusly, there we
down
go.
the road. And, people used to tell me when I would discuss desalination with them, well, desalination is just too expensive. And I would say to them, as compared to what? Running out of water. So we need to think about this, not in terms of this is just for industry. This is for the growth and the lifeblood of our community. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind. But I would say we need to move on with the next step. And let's move the can down the road a little further. Thank you, Kel. Thank you. Well, there are a couple.
That's it. And basically, when I was a proponent of desal and people would say desal's too expensive, because desal is too expensive. I would tell them, what's more expensive, desal or running out of water? That's not cool.
Right, and then if you think, like, take that with Engel's statement that industries growing, they're gonna grow and they're gonna come. And really, what they wanna do is they wanna be able to invite, and this is the part that I just don't understand. Why do you wanna keep inviting that here?
He's clearly saying they're even gonna compete with industries who are already here.
Yeah.
Like,
So the people aren't the lifeblood of the
Right.
area, is what he's saying.
yeah.
These industries are the
Yeah, and
lifeblood.
he's saying,
of this area.
it's expensive, it's gonna be hard to sell this, it's expensive. So we need to get out there and tell people what's more expensive, desal or running out of water.
And the reason why we're running out of water is because of
Yeah.
how much water these industries use. And the thing is, we don't know what kind of contracts, what kind of
Exactly.
agreements they made with these industries. And that is very concerning.
I'm also wondering,
And the member of it, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
the member of your group who this week found that Choke Canyon's not moving.
yeah,
It's flooding, there's floods, and we all see the rain, we all see the flooding, we all know it's been raining. And the Choke Canyon's not moving, so how are we running out of water? And why are we running out of water? That's just being told to us to manufacture this drought and make us afraid. They literally want us to be afraid of running out of water. And we should be, but not run out and pay for desal because we think that that's gonna make us not run out of water.
Mhm.
That, if anything, is gonna commit water to even more.
yeah.
And what were you gonna say?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I said I'm gonna stop doing it.
I mean, we're seeing what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi,
Yeah.
where they have no water, and that's because of years of neglect. They're like,
Do they have the guzzlers there as well? or-
I'm pretty sure they have some sort of
Some
stuff, but
funny-
the lack of the lack of investment in infrastructure, which we have seen here.
Mhm.
We have still like lots of pipelines that have lead in them.
Yeah,
How much water do we lose per day because of leaks?
yeah.
And all that, like, instead of investing in things that help us conserve our water and keep us safe and healthy. Like, it's like, oh, well, we'll just ignore that and we'll go put a beautiful crosswalk across to make it seem like we're doing something.
So you mean the city logo isn't gonna get us clear water? The city logo on the water tower isn't gonna help us?
That's gonna stay as clean as the crosswalks that we see right outside this window. And the other cost that they're not talking about, desal, is the cost to tourism, the cost to the fishing industry, the cost to our health, because if they're gonna bring in more polluters, that where our health is already being impacted by the air that we breathe, by the water that we're drinking, by the dust that we inhale and all that. So bringing more in is going to affect us long term. And the thing that doesn't sit well with me is that, not to put it in an ugly way, but a lot of these people, decision makers aren't gonna be around to see the negative impacts. And they're saying that they're doing it for the youth,
The future.
the future, when all they're doing is guaranteeing that we have no future that doesn't look like Port Arthur or Texas City or, parts of Louisiana where it has been overrun
Or worse.
by these polluters.
Yeah, there's a place in Louisiana, I actually call it Cancer Alley. That's right by refineries, and we have the same thing here. But I think for us, we have internalized that it's just normal. And it's actually like the way that we live is not normal. So many of us have had our lives touched by cancer, by asthma, by learning disabilities. And all of those things are actually correlated with living in close proximity to heavy polluting industries. And so, the way that science does things, they talk about correlation, not causation. But again, if you look at communities that are by heavy industry, you see elevated rates of cancer, learning disabilities, asthma, chronic stuff. It doesn't have to be normal, but we don't have leadership that advocates for us. And we actually don't even see, I was actually thinking, you know what, I would be like, when we talk about public safety in our budget, that's code for police and fire to a certain extent, but mostly for police. But it's like, well, actually, we have a huge threat in our community, which is heavy industry. They release benzene, they release volatile organic compounds, they release all kinds, they have all kinds of formaldehyde, they have all kinds of pollution permits. And we actually don't have good monitoring of that. There have been groups that have had to apply for grants to get money so that they could monitor what's in the air in those areas. And so, a lot of times people talk about ozone and are we in containment? It might look like we're healthy, but it's also because we don't have the monitoring out there.
And it's also very telling, like I saw recently a fluff piece where we have now an air committee. And it's port, politician, industry.
Yeah.
They're gonna tell on themselves,
Yeah, no.
We
Just like
already
their
know that we're not gonna get the truth out of those people.
environmental group that they created.
So that's like, okay, the mayor's on the air commission, like, she doesn't even sit for 2 minutes of public comment.
Yeah.
What's she gonna do? And was there not a study that people like on my side of town died 10 years younger? Or was it the League of
I'm pretty sure.
Women?
Oh, the League of Women
Oh.
Voters produced it.
It was literally like 10 years life expectancy in the west side over like these areas.
Yeah,
Because that's where all the industry is.
pollution
so,
kills over 8 million
Yeah.
people in the US a year.
yeah.
So those are premature deaths because of air pollution. Like
Yeah.
8 million
Wow.
Yeah.
people. And just because we aren't impacted by something right now, or you don't feel it immediately, doesn't mean that it's not going to impact you. Like my dad was in the Vietnam War and he was exposed to Agent Orange over there. And when he got older is when it started to really impact like his kidneys and all that. So he had a premature death.
What was the gap between
Let
like
me
your
see.
dad?
He was there in his 20s and he passed away at 72.
Okay.
So, but he was on dialysis for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Because his kidneys started to go out because of Agent Orange.
So you don't see it, but
Yeah.
later on in life, it comes back, it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we do see it with some, like especially pregnant women and, who live, or not women, but just pregnant people who live near industries.
Yeah.
They're, those they end up giving birth to children with, you know, potential birth defects. And so we, you know, this is like just like another cost that we can add to the overall cost of desalination. And, you know, they're trying to say, well, it's because of drought, because of this and that. But I still go back to this area, they have known it's a drought prone area, but yet why go and seek a lot of these industries that consume so much water?
We
You know?
are a drought prone region, we are that way, why this area? Because they just assumed that people here weren't gonna question it, I guess, or they just need the water, they don't care. They need the water, they.
And I mean, and they were banking on people not advocating and not paying attention and. Right, and so, I mean, that also brings you to this other thing too, like this devaluing of education. And not having people think about like civic engagement. You know, so you underfund schools, you threaten people with like, this is jobs, but without actually showing them the data for it, or even like how to read it. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, why did it become cool? Be like, I don't like math, I can't do math, it's very difficult. Right, but, and not to belittle people who have challenges with it,
Yeah.
but statistics are used to create arguments. Right, and so industry will say, well, we're a job creator and, you know, and we have this much billions of dollars of value in property. But, and so we're like, most of us like, oh, okay. But we, and then when we look at the graphs in the day, like, man, it's really hard to read. We haven't been educated, we've made it culturally okay for people to say, I can't do it. But because we do that, we can't look critically at the information that they do offer us. You know, or like with Zanoni. It's not 80%, it's 50%, it's 45%, it's less than 60%.
Yeah.
And we'll have to ask, these are like.
And what I find, like, when you do have people, community members who are willing to do that and kind of get that out to us and help us with that, they are the ones who are not no-goes. They are the ones who are not welcome. They are the ones who are not heard. They are the ones who are just, they're not even like it's a moot point that you're bringing up.
Yes.
Because it's got facts.
Yeah.
And just for everyone, I know there's a little who goes in there week after week, year after year, and is not deterred and goes in there with facts, with information, with knowledge. Thank you all so much, and don't stop. They're threatened by your knowledge. They're threatened by your sincerity and your genuine knowledge. People who are speaking the truth aren't afraid, they don't run and hide, they don't. And that's like what you brought up. I literally just sent Dr. A message. And it's a headline that says industry paying its fair share despite no bond referendum. And I'm like, and so I've just gotten to the point, and this is for y'all too, like, just pay attention to the headlines and pay attention to these stories. And you can almost find the point in these articles where it stops making sense, where it's like, and that's on purpose to make you feel like I'm dumb, I can't understand this. And but they do that, it's like a word salad, a scramble around, like,
Yes.
I'll tell a quick funny story. One of my kids didn't like to eat his vegetables when he was little. And so like when he would get a plate of vegetables, he would like move them around and like shuffle them around and hide them in the potato. They just ended up in the trash eventually. But it was fun to watch him, and it's like watching Peter Zadowski, or like not even just him. I mean, even like poor Sam.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They'll just like move it around, shove it in the gravy, put it in the potato, put butter on, and it's like it's
Still there.
when it's so damn easy, so.
Yeah, or like my mom like hiding stuff, like speaking of vegetables, like she did not like them. And then so I had her plate and I had my dad's plate. And then when I looked over at her plate, I'm like, why does dad have more vegetables than what you had there? And she's like, I didn't know you would notice. You would notice, like, oh, like small. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like my son in the Tony, what, yeah, there, yeah, on your feet.
Yeah.
Being like, it is like a, don't look here, so those of you who are, we're listening and your information is so valuable and you're clear and you're concise and there's nothing wrong with you or what you're doing. It's just that you're too scary for them.
Yeah,
It's too scary.
and your comments, like, even for the ones who don't have data and all that, just as powerful, you
Yeah.
speaking your truth and telling your story. And telling your story to your neighbors and like voicing your concerns, because at the end of the day, nobody can tell your story but you. And nobody can like, like lessen that power. So, keep advocating for yourself, keep advocating for the community. We need you.
Yeah,
Very
because
much.
our leadership sure isn't doing it. Okay, so speaking of, I really need to share these numbers.
Yes.
So going to like the shuffling and stuff, right? So we were talking about like how, when we first started doing this work, or when we were getting really concerned about the push towards desal and that the city was just blowing us off for the greater good. We started like making sure that we were reading the reports, and there was this 2019 water conservation report. And in that water conservation report, it actually showed how, and they said, we don't have like a real conservation plan, but if we did, the city would be, or as a water supplier, they would be able to save enough water to account for the projected growth in residential numbers, and for commercial businesses for the next 50 years. So like, that's all we would need to do for that. And again, like commercial, like a diversified economy would be good.
Restaurants, daycares,
Right, I mean,
it's just business.
yeah. Business.
Coffee shops, like, yeah.
But industry, you just have to have a couple of customers, and and each new industry customer that you get on, it throws off the water consumption because they use so much water. And this idea of them paying their fair share is not true. So in the 2019 report, it was really easy to see how the water was allocated to the different like stakeholders, you could say. Now we can't find the most recent report. And then they talk about, well, we only need to have a report a certain number of years. It's like, well, yeah, because we're like, hey, you guys, y'all said it in your own document.
Yeah.
You said it was for industry. Like, if you look at the water, and so
None of the master papers.
So this is the other thing, like paying our fair share, like the desal plant is going to be so expensive, but already right now with our water consumption, we pay more. So I was looking at the utility bills and how I'm like, they're going to hide this soon too. So I have a picture of it, we'll put it up there, but for residential customers within the city limits, we pay $12.92 for the first 2,000 gallons of water. That means that we pay $6.46 per 1,000 gallons. Now it's all kind of complicated, but it has residential, commercial, and then at the bottom, it says industrial. And there's within city limits and then outside city limits. And I was like, man, well, like Valero and Refinery Row, they've been able to like carve themselves out of the city limits. So I don't know if they're part of the inside city limits. So I was like, let me just look at what the bill is.
Because they're
Right.
taking from the same water.
Right.
It doesn't matter where you physically are located or whatever.
Right, and their pollution goes into our air shed, so it has an impact. These boundaries, or these political boundaries, are not real in terms of quality of life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's all interconnected. So, but what I did is I was like, okay, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're outside limits. So on the first 10 million gallons of water, the outside industrial water users will pay $40,382 for their for 10 million gallons. Well, if you want to know what that proportion is so what does it break down to per 1,000 gallons? At 10 million gallons a month, right? That the first 1,000 gallons are paying $4 and less than 4 cents. $4 is like 0.0385. But we pay $6.46. The average household only uses 3,000 to 5,000 gallons per month. That's multiple users. And yet industry on its first 10 million only has to pay a little over $4.
Let me go get you the Katie Porter whiteboard.
Yeah. So it's just like so unreasonable. And then after that, the price per 1,000 or per, I forgot the unit of the unit, it goes up to like $5 and some change, but still like they're not paying their fair share. They never pay their fair share. And they're not building the desal plants, and the port's not building the desal plants because they're so expensive that they can't run a profit and still run desal. But they're like, you know what? We're gonna get the community
To think that they're gonna run out of water.
yes, and then they'll pay for it. It'll be in our higher water rates. It'll be in our higher maintenance fees. I mean, right, you're like, wait a second. Water's only $12.92 for the first 2,000 gallons. Then why is my water bill so high? My mom passed away and we've been paying her water bill and she doesn't use the, like, nobody's there to use the water. Right, but I still pay $84 a month for my utility bill. It's the fees and all of those other things, right? So they're gonna find a way to charge us, and that's why we have to say no. Like, no,
And
no,
they,
no.
and they were just raising stormwater.
Yeah,
I
this-
believe,
yeah.
Like, I don't know, and they'll say that's not related, that's separate,
Mhm.
it's all coming from our pocket anyway.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
So it's just a bunch of gaga.
yeah, it's money, it boils down to money and how can we make them pay for this? Like, how, well, like we heard the councilman say, what's more expensive? Running out of water, and so we need, he is in that point telling his staff, we need to get this. The idea out there that this is not just for industry, this is for the community,
Right.
but is it? It's not, the port commissioner has said it's not for us, it's not for us. Here we go, this is.
Oh my God, am I gonna really try to do this?
Yes, yeah, please. We need to know.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. All right. So I do like a little proportion thing. Oh,
Do you want me to move this, like close it or leave it right, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So, I mean, like, this is, I mean, see, you still can't see it.
Here,
Maybe
here's
it's
what.
turn on the
I'll try
light.
this. Oh my gosh. It's a proportions thing. It's,
Yeah,
better?
I can see it better.
Okay. Okay.
You wanna maybe close that to it, yeah.
So, this is what I like from math classes back in the day, right? So for 10 million gallons. Right, so this is the water, they'll pay $40,382 for their 10 million, right? But what we wanna know is, well, how much are they gonna pay per 1,000 gallons? And so, 4th, 5th grade, you multiply across. And then you divide by the number that's across from the blank, and that'll give you what that amount is right here. And so it actually comes out to 4.04. And so they're per 1,000 gallons, they're paying $4.04, or a little, actually, it's like 4.0382. But for us, right? Right, we pay $12.92 for 2,000 gallons, right? So then how much is it going to be for 1,000 gallons? And so again, you do the crisscross and then divide by that number, and it winds up being $6.46, right? So they're paying about 30% less,
Wow.
or only 60% of what we're paying, right? And here's the deal, like, once they get past the 10 million gallons in the month, then the price goes up, and I can't remember exactly, it's like $5 and something cents, but it's still less than what we pay. Right? And the average household, again, only 3,000 to 5,000 gallons. Exxon back in the 2019 piece, they were using almost 6 million gallons of water. Gosh, per day. And then, or was it per day?
Probably.
Am I off of that? Yeah, Exxon.
Well, when they were proposed to
Oh.
come to this area, or?
No, not Exxon, I'm sorry, Valero, because
Oh.
Steel Dynamics,
Yeah.
Steel Dynamics uses like 6 million per day. And then Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, they're going, well, they only maybe use 17, they have permission to use up to 22 million or 20 million gallons of water per day.
Per day.
Per day. This is what we use in a month, right? And so we stop and we think about, well, if we go to drought stage 2,
That is troublesome.
we don't even know how much they're gonna charge us, because as soon as the household goes over their 3,000, there's gonna be a drought surcharge that will go to all of the water that you use. And we've been asking, and well, it's never happened before. Well, Zanoni said it's gonna happen early. Right? And something's happening with Choke Canyon. You know what, this is the thing too, and this is what's so sad, is that we can't even trust what comes out of their mouths.
Well, they don't even wanna answer that.
Mhm.
That is like taboo, that is, there's people asking till they're blue in the face and they refuse. That's just not, we're just not even gonna answer that. So how do you trust them?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's scary, and that's the thing, like, some people will be like, well, you know what, it's so bad, I can't even engage. Because what purpose is it gonna serve? Actually, this is when you need to engage. Like, we can't afford to not engage.
Because that's why they do it, so we'll go away.
Yeah.
It is easier to go away.
It
It
is.
is easier to go away. I don't like
Yeah.
seeing them. I don't like listening to them. I don't like looking at them. It is easier. I'm not gonna even deny that.
Yeah.
But. If I can't, what got really troublesome to me with the 3,000 gallons, to kind of put in perspective, because I know, like, I'm the kind of person, like, I'm so math, not like 6,000,000 and 6,000, like,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of us like that out there.
Yeah.
So just to put it in perspective, so in 2 different occasions, they said the basic, I don't know, the basic amount for a human would be, what did the girl say? 60
About
gallons,
60.
about 60 gallons, and then Mike
Per
Murphy
day.
said 80, which we thought was high. We actually conserved more than that.
Yeah.
I think my kids, myself, we're probably more around like 40.
Yeah.
And I think truly the average is like 44.
Mhm.
So let's go with it, when they're trying to tell us how much we use, it's the numbers inflated, of course. So let's say, use those numbers, if you use 60 gallons a day, and we'll use the lower one, because Mike Murphy, they gave us 2 different ones. Let's say 60 gallons a day. I have a family of 5. And a puppy, so I won't count him, but a family of 5. So if they allocate 3,000 to me, how much are they leaving per person in my house per day? You can do it, right? So it would be like 3,000 divided by 30.
Right. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna go like this. What am I doing?
Because I think this makes
Okay.
it human, like it
Okay.
kind of, okay, so
Okay.
let's say they said they're 60 gallons a day,
Okay,
right?
60 gallons
And they're giving me
per
per
person?
person, that's what she said, per person.
For one person.
And we tried to give her an escape clause, we were like, are
Yeah.
you sure it's not 40? She said, no, it's 50.
Okay, so if there's 5 people in your household, right, 5 people,
Yeah.
that's gonna be 300 gallons. Really?
Okay,
¿En serio?
So let's say, let's break up what they allocate to my family. Let's say we're willing to conserve, we're willing to get lower. How low do they want us to go? 3,000 gallons
Oh.
divided by the 30
By-
days?
Yeah, it's a 3,000 divided by 30.
My dad were here, you'd be going, do it in head, do it in head. That's why I'm terrified of math, by the way. Don't do that to your children.
It's 100 gallons a day.
100 gallons, so divide that by the 5 people
So
in my
20.
household. So they're allocating to me. That people, that folks, that is below the average needed for sanitation and for human use. And that is, I'm sorry, that is bullshit. What are poor people gonna do? People that are on fixed income, they're gonna stop flushing, they're gonna skip a day with washing. You're getting into human rights violations, sanitation issues. And we're not gonna let this go because it rained. We're not letting it go. That is the lowest that my family could go. Now, if we went over, okay, but what about like when that water bill comes in and someone can't pay it, and then turning it back on is fees and reconnect, and you're gonna have people in this town who will not have access to a basic human right, which is clean, affordable water. That is what they want to allocate, and I'm 5. There's families that are 6. I personally know people in the community who have more kids than that.
And imagine 20 gallons, and then if you had to boil it, because we can't trust the water that comes out of the tap.
That is what their
Or-
conservation plan, and I've had people laughing on me online, it's not funny, people, that's what they're saying. You're gonna get, while Exxon sucks how many?
Almost 14,000 gallons per minute.
So 20 gallons, I mean,
20
visualize
million,
that. That's
20
what-
million a day and 20 gallons.
So according to
person.
their number, they're allocating 30 gallons less per person. According to the real national average, they're allocating half.
100.
And according to Mike Murphy, a quarter. They were telling us during the drought, they have they want to reduce usage by 10%, and they want all of that to come from the people who already only use 20%.
Mhm.
So when they say we're reducing by 10%, that means for you, you're reducing by 50%. Because on months that I'm really good, and I do try, I don't water, I do have 3 boys, so it's like a load every night, but I don't do special, we conserve, we
Yeah.
do.
That's like being on a diet, but you're making somebody else lose the weight.
Seriously, yes, yes. Like,
Yeah.
Really, like, oh, I'm on a diet, but you know.
Yeah.
the lowest we've been able to do is 6,000, and that's not watering, that's, short showers, that's just buying drinking water from the windmill, because we don't drink it out of the faucet, because it's brown and I don't trust them. So like that was terrifying to me, and that's why we were up in arms during the drought. And if you notice, again, just to, keep things real here, if you notice the talk of drought, silence, no more drought crisis.
We're getting closer to the election.
It rained for what? It's rained now for, let's say, for a couple of weeks. And
Yeah.
now we don't hear, because this was another one of those things that was taboo.
Yeah.
And this was another one of those things that we can't let go. I can't let go of that. I mean, more than 20, I mean, if I had to, yes, but is it fair? It's not fair.
Yeah, and then when you stop and you look at like, okay, when we had the complete water ban, because somebody wasn't maintaining their backflow preventer, they didn't have one. They got fined, the city got money, and then you had Petro Pusley over there going, well, you know what, maybe we can pay for, whatever, I forget, was it Flint Hills?
It was Lyondell.
Lyondell, that's right,
So.
to move their backflow preventer, get connection
And
or
just
whatever.
to show like their jobs and how is it Lyondell or Epic, or are they one?
I don't know.
It's out there in Toloso, or Calallen, they've got their chapter 13 in for tax breaks to bring another plastics plant, not, don't tell me you're gonna fill up your car with plastic, don't tell me that, at least get informed, people. Another plastic plant, and they're gonna want, we're guessing 1 million, 2 million a day of water.
Yeah.
And they are bringing, guess how many jobs? 10 jobs, and we in exchange are giving them tax breaks, and it's coming, more water.
Yeah, so that
I
was actually,
wonder if that's the urgency with that 10 MGD plant in the inner harbor, because we know there are certain council persons who have those ties to Lyondell, who
Yeah.
said, we have to be cognizant of the expenses of them having to do things right, basically,
Yeah.
is what they said.
so, and when I was driving over here, I drove by Winslow Middle School. It's such a beautiful school. It was built during that whole like jobs works program, in the whatever, like after World War II or during that period of time. Or maybe it was before. Anyway, but I was thinking, you know what? Jobs, like we could be weatherizing homes.
Yeah.
We could be weatherizing schools. We could be planning and thinking about how can we use our public spaces so that we're not losing water, but maybe even like at our park, we have guava that's growing and it's so delicious when you can pluck it right off of the tree and eat it, or bush. Like we could actually be flipping the script and focusing on jobs that are more environmental, that would lower our cost of electricity, our reliance on the grid. There's all these things that we could be doing that we're not doing because our council, our port, our commissioners are so obsessed with licking the boots of heavy industry. the fossil fuel industry.
And you know, I'm glad you bring that up too, because I think one of the things that has really bothered me about Michael Hunter, other than him saying, you know, we don't need, the way he said it was, we don't need the budget focusing up here. I don't know what that means, but he is demanding loyalty from staff. In a nutshell, that's what he said. He tells them they're coming after you. And that is a divisive thing, and it's destructive, and it's simply not true.
Yeah.
We would love, I'm gonna be honest, the water utility staff to me, and I think I told y'all, they are humans. And there are days when I see them and it's like, I see human beings that maybe came to this city or are from the city that are trying to do their job. And like that situation with the backflow preventer, they had a certain staff, utility staff person there who told them like, this is how it needs to be done. And they ran him over and they stand him up and they use them. And then they expect loyalty from them and they kind of make them take the fall. And you know, I want to get to the point where that water utility staff is working on what we need, is working to fix. I mean, they are running these people ragged with this desal nonsense.
Yeah.
While these people are trying to fix all these busted pipes during the drought crisis a week ago or whenever that was. These people are literally, they are our backbone and they are our town. They're out there, you know, they're where the rubber meets the road, to sound cheesy. And they can't even focus on their job because we have councilmen parading them in there and answer this question and answer that. And it's all optics and it's all, that is not what our staff is for. Our staff is here for our community, not to advance your political career, to pledge loyalty to you. And we're not. They do what they are being told to do. I remember that conversation. I do remember a water utility, and they had just moved him up to that because somebody else left. And he's telling them like, no, this has to be done this certain way. And they just like, no, we're gonna do this. And they're, you know, we'll give him money from the settlement. We got money over here that we got from when we were without water. And so that's all I wanted. That,
So
you know,
instead of giving that money back to the people, the community, helping and investing
yes,
in this infrastructure and all that, it's like, oh, how can we help our friends
right, give our water utility a break.
in the first place?
Give them a break, quit making them promote desal, let them work on infrastructure, let them work on projects, let them, you know, let them do their job. I see them as keeping staff from doing their job.
Yeah, and on that drought plan, you know, going back to like money and stuff, one of the proposed fines, wasn't it like 100% of the cost of their water bill?
Yeah.
That's what, yeah, no,
They-
like that was, it wasn't even an up to, it was like, will be 100%, like, like double the cost of their water bill.
And they won't tell us how to find out about that, when that's gonna be decided, they won't tell us. That's another one of those things that you'll see it when you see it on your water bill. And then we've got so many people in our town that are struggling and that are trying to, all of us are, it's hard right now to make ends meet and to pay bills and to do your job and to raise your children, like, give us a break already, give us a break. We are the community. You know, one of my favorite public comments this Tuesday was one of y'all's group member that said, what can y'all not understand about us truly caring for the community and truly caring about this? Why is that so hard for you to understand? Why? Because they don't tick like that. At the end of the day, fundamentally, they are not there to serve us. And that's sad. And that should change.
Yeah,
That should change.
yeah.
Because if you do make decisions with the public in mind or listening to the public, you have a better chance of being good at it, you know, like you said, creating jobs that are like more. What are those guys with the bridge gonna do? When Flatiron packs up tonight and doesn't answer any questions, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
The guys for the dewatering company that are being run off, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
It broke my heart to hear some of them say, I'm gonna go home and tell my wife that I don't have a job tonight. You know, our city has the money to pay these guys.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have one garbage day, we should have two.
Yeah.
You know, we shouldn't be waiting till 3 and 4 in the afternoon because they're so short staffed. You know, we shouldn't be It shouldn't be that way. They should be priority. People, our projects, people.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be fining people and ticketing people to generate revenue for the community, for resources for our operations, because that's what happens. You know, I mean, when they're ticketing and they're driving around and doing that stuff, and they're generating revenue because there's not enough revenue. Why? Because
We cut back on water.
well, and because the industrial district agreements and, oh, you only have to have an MOU with us. You don't have to pay for services. You know, that's such caca, you know, cause I mean, how many people, it makes me crazy, but how many people put an alarm on their house? How many people filter their own water? We don't get subsidies for that, for doing
Yeah.
those things, because we don't trust the resources that we have within our community that are, you know.
Yeah.
But they get to say that.
I don't live in Corpus Christi, but I have an office here, so we pay taxes here, yet I only get a minute at public comment.
That's horrible.
I pay more in taxes than these industries do. But yet they also parade like some of the industries who are in San Pat, like they give them all the time in the world.
Yeah.
But because what I'm gonna say
Well,
is
shouldn't you-
contrary to their beliefs, I only get a minute, and the mayor has the ability to make that judgment call.
That's ridiculous. But we are now having our own public comment.
Yes.
We don't need your 3 minutes.
Yeah, we don't need it.
We don't need your 3 minutes and we don't need your minute and a half. We don't need it.
So thank you
Just
all.
like-
We really appreciate the time that it takes for y'all to listen to us. Hopefully give you some very valid information that you can then share with your friends and community members. Because at the end of the day, like, we're looking out for y'all because we're looking out for us.
We're looking out for us, that is it, and at least don't walk around thinking that you have to tell on your neighbor. And that you have to turn on people that live close to you, or
Yeah, we're all in this
No.
together.
it's your mind. And when those stories look fishy, it's because they are. They're supposed to confuse you and they're supposed to not make any sense. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, and if the spay was as fishy as those stories are, we'd be set for like life.
Right.
So, yeah.
There's probably a lot, I didn't.
It was a good day.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah, we then say, take care.